Finally, after 16 years, the DEA has finally come out with a DEA registration for legitimate telemedicine prescribers that would not require an in-person visit prior to prescribing or dispensing controlled substances. So it's big news. There's actually 3 new rules that just came out in January of 2025. So let's dig into those 3 rules, what they might mean for you and what they mean for us going into the rest of 2025 and beyond. So to catch everybody up, a little bit of a history lesson. Back in 2008, Congress passed the Ryan-Haidt Act, and it was meant to curb these online dispensaries of opioids. Frankly, we were in the middle of an opioid epidemic, and people were just selling them on the internet. And so the Ryan-Haidt Act, unfortunately, was required in order to crack down on this. Now, in the text of the law that was signed by the president and passed by Congress back then, they directed the DEA to come out with a special registration for telemedicine practitioners, real doctors that were actually using it for its intended purpose, both opioid medications and other controlled substances. So for the past 16 years, we've had a blanket prohibition on prescribing via telemedicine without having an in-person visit first. However, there was a big pandemic. I don't know if you heard about it back in 2020. With COVID, the federal regulations relaxed all of those in-person prescribing rules. So we have been under a waiver of the flexibilities, a waiver of those regulations. In other words, Congress keeps extending these COVID-era flexibilities and waiving this in-person requirement. What does that mean for you? Okay, so shorter history lesson. The past 2 or 3 years, DEA has been saying, all right, we're going to come out with this proposed rule. We're going to come out with this proposed rule. And they've done it 2 or 3 times now. And we've covered it here at Functional Lawyer, where they propose a rule and the whole industry is like, that's not good enough. And so they walk it back and they extend the COVID flexibilities again. Looks like they're not going to have to do that. And this is a lot earlier than we expected, but they did come out with finally a rule that would satisfy that special telemedicine registration as directed back in the 2008 law that came into effect in 2009. That's why I'm saying 16 years. Okay, so what is it? What does it mean for you? And what does that look like for you and your practices moving forward? All right. Now, it's important to know that there are 3 new rules that have come into effect recently for the DEA. And the one I'm talking about specifically right now is the one that would allow you to see a patient over telemedicine only and then still prescribe controlled substances. So let's jump into them. That rule is still proposed. It's not finalized yet, meaning it's been published and they're waiting for public comment from the industry. And so I tell you that because they've done this at least once before and public outcry was enormous. I don't expect that this time, but it's still possible that they would pull this back and change the rule again. But let's go over it and what it looks like. And just keep in mind, this doesn't even take effect until the end of 2025. So for the rest of 2025, carry on, keeping in mind that state law might also apply. So we're talking federal law only here. And let's get into it. So 3 new rules. It's been shifting, as we know. So the proposed rule, which is still proposed, not finalized, is one that would create special registrations for telemedicine and limited state telemedicine registrations. It lays out a new framework for obtaining special DEA registrations for telehealth-based controlled substance prescribing. And we'll get into details in a second. Number 2, there is a final rule for expansion of buprenorphine treatment via telemedicine. It allows for continued prescribing of buprenorphine via telemedicine, including audio-only encounters. Rule number 3, it's a final rule, so it's permanent unless changed later. Deals with continuity of care for VA patients. So that rule permits VA practitioners to prescribe controlled substances via telemedicine without an in-person visit under certain conditions. So let's go into more detail for each of these. The primary one that most people are going to have the most wide effect is the special registration for telemedicine prescribing. And again, this is a proposed rule. It's the DEA's long overdue attempt to establish a special telemedicine registration process. And as I said, way back in 2008 and then later, in a 2018 law that Congress passed, they also directed DEA to do this. But now we finally have it, or we almost finally have it. It's still proposed. All right, here's how it works. So there's 3 types of special telemedicine registrations. 1, telemedicine prescribing registration. So it allows qualified clinicians to prescribe Schedules 3, 4, and 5 controlled substances. The second class is Advanced Telemedicine Prescribing Registration. So this allows specialized practitioners like psychiatrists, hospice physicians to prescribe schedules 2, 3, 4, and 5 controlled substances. And the third class is Telemedicine Platform Registrations, and this may have the biggest effect. It authorizes online telemedicine platforms to dispense schedules 2, 3, 4, and 5 through registered providers. So there are a lot of details that I am not mentioning here, and linked below is the text of the actual rules. So please do your due diligence, go read those, or talk to an attorney in your state, or come talk to us at Functional Lawyer to get the actual details. I can't tell you, it's not simple. I'm giving broad strokes, but the devil's in the details here. So on this special telemedicine registration, we're still in the proposed rule. There's additional requirements. So telemedicine encounters must be conducted with audio-video communication. No audio only for this class, this proposed rule. So it has to be AV, or live video interaction. Special registrants need to obtain a state telemedicine registration from the DEA for each state where they treat patients, unless a very limited exception applies. We'll get into that in a second. Prescriptions must be issued through the Electronic Prescribing for Controlled Substances Program, or EPCS system. Practitioners must conduct nationwide prescription drug monitoring program checks, or PDMP checks, though this requirement will be phased in over the next 3 years. But in the meantime, there are some additional checks you do have to make. 1, where the patient is located. 2, where you are located. And 3, if there's any additional places to check, they'll let us know pretty soon. For Schedule 2 drugs, so keep in mind, this only applies to advanced telemedicine prescribing registration, meaning psychiatrists and hospice, and the telemedicine platforms, so not individual clinicians here. For the Schedule 2 drugs, additional safeguards include the prescriber must be in the same state as the patient, and Schedule 2 prescriptions via special registration cannot exceed 50% of the total Schedule 2 prescriptions written by the provider each month. Said a different way, you can only do this if it's less than half of your Schedule 2 prescriptions for that month. And again, this is only for advanced telemedicine prescribing registration and telemedicine platform registration. It also sets specific guidelines for online telemedicine platforms, particularly those using direct-to-consumer models. HIMSS and HERS, as one example. DEA wants to prevent platforms from incentivizing overprescription or restricting provider access to patient records. So, more details on that in the full text of the proposed rule below. I know it's not the most fun. Follow us at Functional Lawyer if you want more details on that. That rule is still open for public comment until March 18th, 2025. Reach out to me if you have questions, and we'll go into the buprenorphine and the Veterans Affairs rules. Buprenorphine treatment expansion. This is a finalized rule, so you can kind of take this to the bank. Again, this is generalized information. There's a lot of details in here too. So the expansion of induction of buprenorphine via telemedicine rule, which is a mouthful. They need a better acronym for that. It was initially proposed in March 2023, and the final version brings in a few key updates. Practitioners can prescribe up to a 6-month supply of buprenorphine. I'm going to just call it buprenorphine. Got it. For opioid use disorder, or OUD, via audio only or AV telemedicine. So that updates the previous rule, which was 30 days only for audio only. So 6 months, whether it's on the phone or whether it's on a Zoom call. And that's for the buprenorphine rule only. PDMP checks are mandatory before prescribing. If the PDMP system is unavailable, providers can issue renewable 7-day prescriptions while attempting to access the PDMP so that the patient doesn't go kind of without and have issues there. Pharmacists must verify patient identity before dispensing, and the effective date of that rule is February 2025, so the Tuesday after President's Day. This rule is a win for increasing access to the medication-assisted treatment for opioid use disorder, especially in rural or underserved areas. Rule number 3, this one's final too. Veterans Affairs Telemedicine Prescribing, final rule. It allows VA employed practitioners, so you must be an employee of the VA, to prescribe controlled substances via telehealth without an in-person evaluation, so long as another VA practitioner has previously seen that patient in person. So if another VA doc has seen them, other second VA doc can then prescribe a controlled substance without seeing them in person. Again, the Ryan-Haidt Act required that the prescribing provider see the patient in person. This would allow for a VA doc to vouch for another's in-person exam. So key conditions for this one is providers must review the VA EMR or electronic health records and PDMP data for the state where the patient is located. If the PDMP access is unavailable, they can again write a 7-day supply until the PDMP review is completed. And this rule only applies to VA employed practitioners, not their contractors or community care providers. The effective date for that one is also February 18th, 2025. And this is a VA only exception, but they might consider expanding these to other non-VA providers in the future. So stay tuned, follow us at Functional Lawyer as well. So what does all this mean for you? If you're not a VA employee, then rule number 3 doesn't really help. If you are using buprenorphine for opioid use disorder, OUD, rule number 2 that I've covered today will help make sure that you can prescribe up to 6 months of that supply, assuming you check the PDMP without seeing a patient in person first, with a few other details there as well. And for the most wide application here, that means that we'll get more details on this later this year, but beginning in 2026, the formal Ryan-Haidt Act will come back into play. However, this special telemedicine registration is now available or will soon be available from the DEA. And you may be able to, if you get this registration and fall into one of those 3 classes, prescribe controlled substances without first seeing a patient in person. So while they offer some permanent telehealth prescribing flexibilities, yay, we've been waiting for this, they're far more restrictive than the pandemic era waivers. So big picture, buprenorphine prescribing has been expanded, especially for audio-only visits. VA providers now have clearer guidelines for prescribing via telehealth. The special registration rule is still a proposal, comes with a lot of red tape, and it's not the first time that they would propose it and then pull it back if that does happen, so it could work. And then nationwide PDMP checks and prescribing limits for Schedule II drugs will increase your burdens. So make sure you're working with a competent attorney that's licensed in your state, or reach out to us at Functional Lawyer if you want to learn more about these rules as well. So if you have thoughts and feelings about the new special telemedicine registration rule, you can reach out to the DEA. Public comments are open until March 18th, 2025. And if you want to dig deeper, the text of the full regulations and proposed rule are available down below. So stay compliant, stay informed, stay safe out there, and we'll see you guys in the next video.